make some beeswax coconut molds for a future project. They'll be coming up in a future video. This is something I've honestly been putting off for quite a while because there's a lot of steps involved, and sometimes when there's a lot of steps involved in a project, I just put it off because as a mom, it's kind of hard to do things with lots of steps in one day and not be interrupted a bunch of times, but I need to get this done. So we're going to do the first part of this today. Some of you might be able to guess what I'm making, but that will be coming up in a future video. So I have a double boiler here right now, and I'm going to mix beeswax, coconut oil, and a little bit of jojoba oil. Then we're going to let those harden in little silicone muffin tins, and then in a future video, you'll see what we're actually going to do with those. So I'm doing 2 parts beeswax, 1 part coconut oil, and then a couple of drops of jojoba oil. Alright, so I'm going to let that melt down, and then we'll add the jojoba oil. I'll kind of stir it as it starts to melt, incorporate the coconut oil and the beeswax. While this is going, I'm going to multitask, get some other kitchen work done. We've got to soak oats to make granola. We've got to start bone broth, and I need to start some bread. So we'll see how much I can get done in the midst of clingy baby and this melting down. If you didn't already know, the reason you would want to soak oats or rice or legumes, beans, is because when you leave them soaking for 24 more hours at room temperature, it helps break down and release the phytic acid that is on these grains, legumes, rice, and helps our body digest it better. It's the same concept as making sourdough bread or fermenting any kind of food. And we're out of water. Always out of water in the Berkey when I need to make bone broth and soak things. So I'm gonna have to fill it up before we go any further. I usually do half of the bag of bones at a time, and that gives me about a gallon of bone broth. This is the butchered half beef we ordered 3-4 months ago. I have a video on our half beef order where we bulk ordered beef, and this is the bones that came with it. We are working through our bones really quickly. We go through so much of bone broth in our house, but bones are actually really cheap to buy from a local store around here, so I can always just buy bones as needed when we run out of the ones from our half beef. This is my weekly sandwich bread recipe. I have a video on it that takes you step by step how to do it, but I wanted to remind you, when you're making sourdough bread, it's always best to not go specifically by the recipe for the amount of flour. So in that recipe, I tell you around 9 cups of flour. Now this makes 3 loaves of bread, 3 small loaves or 2 larger ones, depending on the size of your pan. But I tell you around 9 cups, but you kind of got to learn the feel of the dough, because sometimes your starter will be more or less hydrated. Sometimes I do 7.5 cups of flour, sometimes it's 8, sometimes it's 9, sometimes it's a little more than 9. So anytime you're working with any sourdough bread recipe, wherever you get that recipe, always add your flour, always add less. You can always add more. So now once I added my butter, I do need to go ahead and add that 1/8 cup. I'm not going to go quite 8. Because you just kind of have to, the more you work with sourdough and making bread, the more you'll learn the feel of the dough that you're making and the consistency that you need. You'll get there. I know sourdough, making bread, can be so intimidating to so many at first, and when you get that first loaf and it's really dense or it's really hard, you get a little frustrated and you want to give up. And I have been there, and you know, I still have really dense loaves sometimes. It all is dependent on your starter. If you have a weak starter, maybe you're just getting started out making working with a sourdough starter, or maybe it's the temperature's changing and your sourdough starter needs to adjust for a week or two because of the temperature shift. We're kind of at that point now. We're just getting into the colder months here where we live, and my starter it's not getting active and bubbly quite as fast. So sometimes my breads or the foods I'm making, the bread products I'm making, aren't quite as fluffy and bubbly as they are in the summer months. So we just kind of have to learn to be patient with it. Just don't give up on it, and you'll get there. Alright, this will harden fast, so we're gonna work quickly. Our coconut oil beeswax mixture is melted. I added 4 or 5 drops of jojoba oil. Now I'm just gonna make some little molds. So this is gonna make the next part of our project easier, where we can just use these molds instead of having to remelt beeswax, dip, and I'll show you all that when we get there. But so I've shared how to make bone broth many times on this channel, but I still get questions about it, so I'm happy to continually show you guys how I make it. It's so simple, but I think when you first get started and try to make it, it can be intimidating. I know I was. But this is such a staple. I make it so often. I go through probably a gallon some weeks, if not more, depending on how many soups I make, how many gravies, how much rice I make, because we use it for all of those things. There's not quite enough water in this, filtered all the way through. Let me grab the apple cider vinegar. I add a splash of apple cider vinegar to our broth because that will help pull out the nutrients from the bones in the cooking process. This is actually peach cider vinegar. I'm pretty sure I shared how to make this.
I'm helping today.
Thank you, love. Back in the summer when I was canning peaches, this is the peach scraps that I soaked and let form a mother. So you can actually see the mother floating in there. It smells just like,
the mother floating in there.
It's this big, it looks kind of like an amoeba or a jellyfish. That is the mother. It's called the mother. It looks kind of like a jellyfish though, doesn't it?
Now I see the jellyfish.
It's not really a jellyfish. It's called the mother.
Now I want to look in there.
Well, buddy, you can't really look. It's in the bottom. So anytime I make another batch, I can pull this mother out. Kids are very fascinated in the mother. I guess I haven't really showed it to them. It looks like a fish, doesn't it? So anytime I make another batch, I save all our apple scraps, and like as we eat apples throughout the year, I'll save scraps and make more batches of apple cider vinegar, and I can just pull that mother, put it in a new batch, and it will help it ferment faster. So about anywhere from a few tablespoons to a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar into our broth. Set it for broth 4 hours. I used to cook our broth for close to 12 hours in the Instant Pot, but since learning a little more, researching a little more about heavy metals that can be pulled out of the bones in the longer cooking process, I've shortened it to 4. You can do your own research there if you're interested more in that, but that's just what personally works for us. It congeals every time. I should have added a chicken foot, but yeah, let me add one real quick. That actually helps it congeal a lot. Anytime we have a chicken that needs to be harvested, hey, let me put it in the broth. We save the feet, and I use it for broth. You can also buy chicken feet from a local store that sells it. We have one about 30 minutes from us. You can buy a whole bag of feet for like $5, and I only use 1 chicken foot per batch of broth, so it lasts quite a while. Hey y'all, I did some homeschool stuff activities with the kids, and we're back. These are fully dry. I'm gonna pop them out and probably just put them in a jar till we're ready to use them. So they're still a little soft. Very, very slightly soft here on the bottom. put them in a jar, and then store them until I do the project, which will hopefully be a test run later this week, and then I'll have a full video sharing with you guys what I'm gonna be making this year with these little molds. So now I need to make some fermented garlic. I shared a video a while back about staying well through the winter months and some of our remedies and things we use in our house, and I was talking about fermented garlic. I showed our fermented garlic. Someone requested for me to show how to make it. I've had that on my list, but I'm just now getting around to it because honestly it takes quite a while to make the fermented garlic because it takes so long to chop the garlic. Peel the garlic. You don't actually have to chop it. Sorry, peel the garlic. So I have some here. This is not homegrown garlic. We grew garlic this year. Did not do very well. We just have to get down to the cloves. You don't have to chop them, and then I'll show you the process. But this is great for the antibacterial effects of garlic. And when you ferment it, you're getting probiotics as well when you take the fermented garlic. So we use this all throughout the winter. I try to give it to my kids once a week, just as a preventative, once or twice a week as a preventative. You could do it every day, but I don't always remember. And then if anybody gets sick, we immediately eat a clove of fermented garlic. So we use this kind of as an antibiotic. We don't use antibiotics unless an emergency, it's completely necessary with our kids or anybody in our family. This is like our antibiotic, and I've seen miracles I've seen miraculous healing from just eating a clove or two, a few cloves of garlic a day when sickness or infection or anything hits our family. Stomach virus. If anybody gets a stomach virus, stomach bug in our family, the entire family is eating fermented garlic. Anybody gets a cold, flu symptoms, everybody's eating fermented garlic. So this is so wonderful. You can buy garlic in capsule form, like dried garlic, which is great, but it's not going to be nearly as good and beneficial as true whole garlic cloves in their pure form. You can also just eat a clove of garlic. So we always keep garlic in our house. If anybody comes down with a sickness and I don't have fermented garlic, we just open up a clove and eat it. It's quite stronger that way, and I have not been able to get my children to eat it that way. My husband and I can do it, but it's very strong. The fermented garlic has a strong taste, but it's not nearly as strong as the raw garlic by itself. So either way is great. Okay, I'm adding 2 tablespoons of salt, and then we're gonna fill this with water, lightly put the lid on top, and then I'm gonna leave it on the counter for anywhere from 2, 3, up to 4 to 6 weeks. I'll just check on it, make sure there's all the garlic stays under the water. That's the whole point of a ferment, is you want that brine, that salt in that brine to take over. It'll let the good bacteria grow, kill the bad bacteria, but you've got to keep your contents below the water level. So if any start to float up, those could start to mold, and you'll just need to pull those off. A small mason jar, and then my fermenting weight, just kind of hold that down. Everything seems to be submerged, but like I said, I will watch this over the next few days, and if any are coming up, I'll resituate the weight, the jar. That's just your goal here, is making sure nothing comes above the water line. Ending out here today by getting some gifts wrapped. This will be my first wrapping session of the season because we just got our tree put up, and I don't really wrap gifts when we get the tree up because we actually put our gifts out under the tree for them to just be there all year round, all season, all year round. That's what my family did growing up. We put the gifts out as they got wrapped, and it was just fun to see presents under the tree, see who they were for grandparents, friends, or people in our family. And we don't do Santa, so that's just personal opinion. So we don't have like gifts we save for Christmas morning. Well, there's a couple of gifts that Tyler and I will give the kids that are a little bit larger that will come out Christmas morning that we can't actually wrap, but they each have anywhere from like 5 to 8 gifts. We don't go super overboard on Christmas, just because they get so much from grandparents and other family members. We try not to go overboard on getting them gifts, and they can see it and have the anticipation. They like that, knowing that they have gifts under the tree. I'm just sorting each kid's gift right now. Here on out, as things come in, I will wrap them pretty quickly and get them under the tree so that we don't have a huge pallet that I'm not wrapping 15 things the week of Christmas. So that's just kind of how we do Christmas gifts in our family with our children. So I'm gonna wrap that real quick. This is the last bit of wrapping paper I had from last year. I have lots of gift bags, and my kids love wrapping paper gifts. I think I gave it one of the kids' items in this small piece, and then I'm gonna go upstairs and find some more, and then I'm gonna have to buy some more gift wrap. I thought I had more than this, but that is gonna end out today's video. I'm gonna wrap some gifts and kind of just relax while the kids are napping. I've just got my kids back to where they all nap or have quiet time. They don't always nap at the same time. For a while, the youngest was having an earlier nap, and then the older two did not go down until she woke up. It just how it fell, but we're finally all back almost to the same nap schedule, which is nice. If you're a mama, you know how nice it is when everybody naps at the same time. But I've talked about it before. There's no need in getting worked up or upset or anxious when the kids don't all nap at the same time. I used to be that way. And then having my third child, I just realized that this is not gonna always happen, and I just have to let it go, because the more I let that build up, the angrier and more uptight I get as a mom, the less patient mom I am. So there was about 5 months here recently where the naps did not line up, and I just had to go with the flow. But with that being said, it is nice when they do. So you mamas all know that. So I hope you are having a beautiful start to your holiday season, and I will see y'all in my next video.